Hello again, YouTube land. Today is Friday. It's the 20th of April. It's my day off, technically. I'm going to try to once again keep this to a shorter time frame in an effort to continue on what I mentioned last time, the suggestion of interest versus length that my husband reminded me of recently. Today's brief meditation and musing is on exactly how much everything changes by staying virtually the same as it always has been. For many years of my early life, I was told and led to believe by what can only be described as a demonic mother that not only was I not supposed to have interpersonal relationships, but that in the long run, in the end, they'd serve no purpose. That by the end of it all, the only thing that ever really counted for anything was you and what you did for yourself, which, many years removed from having been taught that lesson, I understand what wisdom she could have drawn from it, but she made it a fundamental tenet of her approach to life, and that it didn't serve her in the end. So, as I've paid attention to recent events in my own life and things around me, it occurs to me that the same patterns repeat. I make few friends in the course of my life. I mean, I get along with people fine, but there are a few people I would actually say are, close friends, people I spend a lot of time with, people I want to spend a lot of time with. And part of that is because I'm describable as antisocial in some respects, but it's also because I have a quite ridiculously high standard for the people I prefer to associate with. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also something about me that never has changed, and I'm turning 29 this year. It's not gonna change at this point. I mean, I might be able to give it some latitude, but it's not gonna change incredibly. And the unfortunate side effect of that is that high standards lead to not regret, but deep letdown. And I'm not naming one person specifically, I'm not citing any particular event, but in my life it's been a cyclical pattern that more than once I have had what I considered a very good friend basically turn on me for all intensive purposes, and done for very hard to swallow reasons. Things that to the outside observer have no justification, have no relevance, are completely illogical, in some respects inconceivable. So as much as it's different person to person that I go through that with, it's still the same pattern basically repeating. It's still the same event happening, just involving me and different people than the last time. I'm not one for letting someone seriously burn me emotionally and then allowing them the opportunity to do it again. Which is not a lifestyle for everyone. Generally speaking, people prefer to give second and third chances to the people they really care about. But I put so much effort into making it clear up front that it's too difficult for me to trust, it's too difficult for me to let people in, so that if it's broken, if it's betrayed, that's the end of it. I don't do well with repeated pain, despite my upbringing and some behavioral patterns. I don't do well with it, and I do try to avoid it. I do try to actively tamp it down whenever possible. But that is one of the ways things keep changing by not changing. Another way being fights that you have with say, family members, I tend to get into the same argument with people over and over because, sorry, this chair is really uncomfortable today. I tend to get in the same fight with people over and over because for some reason people assume that, well, I don't know if they've actually assumed it, but their reaction gives me the indication they have that by me vocalizing a disagreement with what they've said, I somehow haven't heard what they've said. That somehow my disagreement means I'm not smart enough to understand what was expressed to me, which is upsetting and confusing and irksome, to say the least, really. I don't really like to talk about how smart I am. I don't like to talk about what things I've tested out of or how high my grades have always been or any other academic standing of achievement that people recognize. But I'm aware of my intellect. I'm aware of my intelligence. I am aware of my capacity for things beyond most of the people I've encountered. And I know that sounds snobby, and I know that sounds pompous and egocentric. And if that's what you think, that's what you think. But I'm just telling you, I'm aware of myself, and it's in this light which I am aware of myself. So it bothers me that I have to placate people so much. It bothers me that so often I have to just say, oh no, that's great. Yeah, no, I really like that. No, I see what you're saying. And yet in my mind, I'm editorially going over and saying, well, that's wrong, that's a falsehood, that's illogical. I don't think that's grammatically what they meant. But I'm trying to tamp it down. I don't like picking fights with people. I don't like getting into confrontation. I don't like getting into arguments. But if I get into an argument, I intend to win it. I don't get into fights I can't win. I don't like hopeless situations. I don't like losing battles. And I'm a control freak and a perfectionist a lot of the time. I'm not going to get into something where I'm not going to come out in some significant light victorious. It's just not how I operate. Which is why I often don't get into fights with people. Because they're not fighting me, they're fighting themselves, and they're just being stupid about soundboarding their own argument off of me. So I don't engage, I don't get into it. Which is why certain friendships have gone the way of the dodo. Because it's not me that they're fighting with. That's why their arguments are illogical. That's why their statements are irrational. That's why their behavior is nearly inconceivable. Because they're fighting with themselves and using me as a punching bag. And I don't allow for that. So there's my brief meditations and musings for today on how things forever change by staying basically the same. Hopefully this has been shorter and more focused and easier to follow and listen to and interesting, I guess. Over the course of the next few postings, I hope to get this tighter and more focused on one central topic. I might actually invest in editing software like Pro Tools or something. I don't know. But feel free to leave comments or questions or statements. Love me or hate me, I don't really care. See y'all next time.